Welcome back to the Bears Baseball Network. We've got our third base preview, and I'll tell you what, I'm pretty fired up about this one because there are some straight-up superstars at this position, some of the best players in the entire Bears organization. We're going to go ahead and talk about it just like we have the last couple weeks, starting with the varsity situation at third base for every single age before we dive into maybe a prospect or two and then talk about our sleepers and breakouts. Let's go ahead and start with 18U. One of these situations, obviously, that is very clear. Brendan Nickerson, he's the guy there. I don't know that there's much to say about him. I mean, a superstar. Bernie, I'll throw this one to you. Obviously, this guy, one of the best hitters in the Bears. What are we going to see from Brendan this year that we haven't seen already, if anything?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Brendan's always been a really good hitter. I think he just continues that run. You know he's going to be a top hitter on maybe the top team in the whole Bears organization. He's going to be the top of the order. He's going to play third base every game, and he is the rock for that team.
Yeah, I mean, an absolute superstar. Not sure there's much to say about Brennan. He's a beast, and I'll tell you what, I think he's got a chance to really set the record for high school home runs next year. I believe the record is already his, but I think he could break his own record, and that would be interesting to see because this guy has been working really hard this offseason, so I'm excited to see what he's going to do. Moving on to 16U, and Bernie, going over on this position, I would say, got some decisions to make. Definitely a competition over there. A lot of different options that you could have. But give me your thoughts on the third base situation at 16U.
I mean, yeah, a couple different guys that could play there. Obviously, I think the first guy is Rocky Tucker. He's going to be your best defender out of all the options, most likely. I think this is where you could see Caleb Kalmizi get a lot of his playing time over there at third base. He's obviously going to be in the lineup. And then some other guys, Oliver Saxon can play the infield. And if you can get Will Brotherton's bat a little more consistent, he has proven he can play third base. So you could see a little bit of Will over there.
Yeah, Will Brotherton, a guy we talked about on the first base preview, a guy I like a lot, and I could see gaining some more playing time. But Rocky Tucker, one of the hardest workers in the Bears, I would love to see him really start to come into his own at the plate. But you know where you're going to get from him on the defensive side. So definitely a good option there. Moving on to 15U, and this is a situation I think is relatively clear. I think Santiago Story is going to be the guy at third base. I would say a plus glove. And with the bat, I would say there's room for improvement there, but definitely not going to hurt you at the plate. KJ, this guy's on your BWL team. Give me your thoughts on Santiago Story.
Yeah, Santi's another guy who usually you think of as a big pitcher, but I was really surprised by how great his defense was. He's a very, very good defender. He doesn't miss any balls over there. He makes good throws every time. And, he's a little inconsistent with the bat, but, if you put him in a Dalton order, which is stacked with superstars, he'll do his job at the bottom of the order.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who doesn't necessarily have to be a great hitter as long as he's not hurting you too bad. And I think Santi's definitely not going to hurt you too much. He's a guy who's got some power, He's not going to hit, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 home runs, but he'll hit a home run. I think he had 2 home runs last year. I could see him doing something similar to that again with a 300 to 325 batting average, maybe a little bit higher on the upside. But I like this guy a lot, and obviously his glove is going to be great, and I think he really does his job in that Dalton squad, which is pitching, and then whatever you get from him at the plate is just a bonus. Moving on to 14U. 14U, the situation I would say is pretty clear. It's Ben Combs who's going to be that big star. Landon Nixon also going to fill in at third base as well for this team, and we'll talk about him on this show as well. And I'll go ahead and split that up. Bernie, I'll start with you with Ben Combs. I mean, this guy, he is a burgeoning superstar, and I would say he's a guy that we liked a lot last year, and although he had a little bit of a slow summer, really picked it up in the fall. Give me your thoughts on Ben Combs.
Yeah, someone that we were very high on going into last season. Looks like we were just a little bit early because he really broke out last fall. Had a monster fall, and I think that he rolls into this season with the same type of season he had at the end of last fall. And we can get possibly talking about Ben Combs as a top 10 hitter in the organization by the end of the season.
Yeah, that's where I think that's kind of where I project him to be going into the end of this season, because I think that's what he was in the fall. I think he was already a top 10 hitter, and I think if he can sustain that for a full year, if not be even a little bit better, you could be talking about one of the next stars of the Bears. KJ, the other third baseman at this 14U squad, is Landon Nixon, and I think it's very easy to say Landon Nixon has been the best hitter in the BWL. He's been an absolute monster, arguably the best hitter in the entire Bears organization. Tell me about Landon and your experience coaching him in the BWL.
Yeah, his bat is up there with the top guys. He obviously, I think he's been non-debatably the best hitter at the 14, 15 age, and he's been a very solid hitter at the 16 to 18 year age for BWL as well. He's not a guy who is gonna hit home runs or strike out. He's an all-around hitter, and he's gonna be obviously one of the top hitters in the Bears again this year.
Yeah, definitely going to be in that MVP race. And again, for him getting a full season on that 14U squad, I think is going to do wonders for his full season numbers. And he's a beast. I mean, definitely going to make a case for the home run crown going into this season. I think he's probably the favorite to hit that home run crown and definitely going to be one of the best hitters in the entire organization. Moving on to 13U, once again, a situation that's pretty clear. A lot of stars at each of these teams. It's Parker Ells. He's that 13U third baseman. This is a guy who is a very, very good hitter. One of the top hitters in the Bears. I think arguably a top 5 hitter, but definitely a top 10 hitter in the entire Bears organization. And he's a guy who just takes such veteran at-bats. I mean, he really doesn't give away any swings. He really doesn't chase balls that he can't touch. But he's also very aggressive. He's not to the point where he's taking too many strikes. So you get the best of both worlds with Parker. And his defense is, I think, better than people give him credit for. He's not going to play a gold glove caliber third base necessarily, but he'll make all the routine plays. He'll do his job over there, and you're really not hurting with Parker at third base at all. KJ, I'll throw this one to you. Another guy who's been a big star for you in BWL. Give me your thoughts on Parker Ells.
I knew Parker was a great player, but his bat is really elite. This guy, he takes really good at bats. Obviously these pitchers know how Parker is. They're busting him with a lot of breaking balls, a lot of balls out of the zone, and he's handling it very well. He takes really good at bats, and he's been my top guy on that team hitting wise.
Yeah, he's an absolute superstar, and definitely, a situation as clear as that one at 13U, he is an absolute beast. Moving on to 12U, KJ, obviously your age. You got 2 guys who can play this position, obviously. Nafri Kabarkis, who's going to be that big offensive weapon, and then Caden Inman, who I would say is a little more defensive, although I would say Nafri's a good defender, Caden's a good hitter, but I would say they both kind of specialize in the offense and defense respectively. Give me your thoughts. We'll start with Caden. He's a guy that has been on my BWL team. I've been very, very pleasantly surprised with his defense. He's a beast over at third base. Give me your thoughts on Inman.
Yeah, Caden is probably one of the best defenders on the team. He plays a really good, consistent third base, which is much needed, especially at that age. But another thing about him, he's also going to be a pitcher, so a big pitcher on the team. So that's where Nifri could see some of his innings at third as well, as Nifri pitches too.
Yeah, and Bernie, I want to throw this one to you. Nifri Kabarkis was obviously our rookie of the fall last year, and a guy that we think is going to continue that reign going into the summer. Just give me your thoughts on Nifri, and if you think he's got even some more upside he could show this season.
We saw the story, I think, already last year with Willard coming in and doing his thing. But Nafri definitely has the upside there. Big, powerful bat. I don't think he strikes out an overly too much amount. So the upside is definitely there.
Yeah, 100%. A guy who definitely was the best rookie last year, and I think is going to kind of move into the ranks of the best Bear, period, not putting that rookie tag on it. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do this season. Moving into our last age here at the varsity level, it is 11U. And Bernie, talking about this team, obviously I think it was a question mark going into the winter of who's going to be that third baseman, but as these practices have gone on, as these trials have been happening, it looks like Ben Nichols has kind of emerged as the favorite to be that third baseman. Give me your thoughts about Ben Nichols, Bernie. I know you're pretty excited about him.
Yeah, Ben's relatively new around here, but he came in, he's a very good third baseman. I'm not going to say he's elite yet, but he's very good over there. Also has a nice, very powerful bat at the plate. I can easily see this guy batting in the top 5 of that 11U order, and I think he's going to be a big part of the squad.
Yeah, he's got a very good glove. To me, when I see him over there, I don't really have any questions of balls he's going to field. I think the majority of the errors I've seen him make in practice have been throwing errors across the diamond, but that's something that's easily trained out of him, especially in this Bears system. I think he's going to be a very good third baseman. Probably not Gold Glove in his first season, but definitely a guy down the line who I think we're talking about as one of the best defensive guys in the entire Bears organization at third base. And like you said, Bernie, his bat, it's an upside bat. He's got more power than I would say his body suggests, and he's a pretty big kid. So it just tells you how much power he's got, and I think the contact skills are already there. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do. Let's real quick, looking at the prospects, there is one guy I wanted to kind of spotlight, and it is Joey Burgess. He's a 13U guy and a guy that I think is a very, very upside bat. Going to be very interesting to see what he does this season. Obviously, a guy who's going to start the season on either that Kryler or Bell squad. But I have been impressed with his bat, especially in the cage. He's got a lot of power, and you know who he's a family member of? He's a family member of the Palucci, so you know he's got that hard work already inside him. If he really puts his head down and develops like Dom did, I would say his physical profile is even a little bit better than Dom's, especially when he walked into the door. So I could see him being a big upside bat going down the road for Joey Burgess. All right, let's move on to our sleepers and breakouts. A sleeper is a guy who kind of the public perception of is a little bit lower than where we think it should be. We think he's going to offer more to the table than maybe people think. And a breakout is a guy who's going to go from one tier to the next, or maybe even 2 tiers up. And for me, again, the tiers: superstar, star, starter, role player, and then prospect. All right, Bernie, we'll start with you here. Give me your sleeper at the third base position.
My sleeper, I just talked about him back at my 11U age. It's going to be Ben Nichols. I think, if this guy was here a little longer, like he's already been here for the fall, I think he could be in a breakout conversation. But, he's new around here, so he's my sleeper. He's going to produce a big bat for me this season. I think you're going to have guys like Harrison Blabaum, Owen Lewis, Brody Wilburn, and then you're going to have Ben Nichols right there with him. He's going to have a big season here.
Yeah, and Bernie, obviously brand new. I think there's a lot of guys who don't even know who Ben Nichols is, when we talk about him. So I think that is the definition of a sleeper, that he's a name that I don't think anybody knows right now. I think people are definitely going to know his name getting into the summer. KJ, give me your sleeper at the third base position.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little older. I'm going to go to Matthew Bender. This guy kind of made waves to the Bears as being a guy who recently hit 100 miles an hour. He's a guy who's in a lot of programs. He works really hard. I know he's in pitching. I see him around all the time at Bud Dome. He's in free swing. He's working out a lot. So Bender's going to have a big-time season. He already hit 100, and now he's starting to work really hard. Who knows where he could be at the end of the year.
Yeah, at least for me, no work ethic questions when it comes to Matthew Bender. He's a guy that's been a grinder. Obviously I run that 14U practice. I've seen him work hard there. He works hard in precision pitching, and obviously he's putting that work in at free swing to get to that triple-digit mark of 100 miles an hour. He's a guy I like a lot, and I think he could have a huge season, whether it's on maybe the bottom half of that 14U Floyd team or the top half of that 14U Driscoll squad. Whichever team he's on, I think he could be a real impact player. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do this year. For me, I'm going to go with a 13U guy in Liam Rogers. This is a guy who I think has been perennially underrated in the Bears. Whether he's on the bottom half of 13U Floyd or the top half of 13U Bell, he's a guy who is going to give elite defense. He's arguably the second best defender at the entire 13U age, and a guy who's going to give you good at-bats. I would say for a long time, Liam's biggest weakness was his bat. But going into last year, he really was a very solid hitter. Developed some power. I believe he had at least 1, if not 2 home runs last year. Really did a good job developing his bat. And when you have a guy who has an elite glove, even if he's just serviceable at the plate, he's going to be in the lineup all the time and is going to bring a big impact to that team. So I think Liam Rogers is going to have a very nice season regardless of what roster he's on. I could see him adding a lot of value to whichever team. Moving into our breakouts, KJ, I'll let you start with this one. Give me your breakout at the third base position.
Yeah, I'm going to go to a guy I kind of talked about earlier. It's Caden Inman. I can't think of many guys who've had a better offseason than Caden. He really surprised people in the BWL with how good of a pitcher he's been, how good his defense is. And, if he can be really consistent on offense, I think last year was a lot of times where Caden would go 2 weeks of being one of the best hitters on the team and then 2 weeks of being, not so great. So if he can find a little consistency with his bat, his defense is going to be great. His pitching is going to be great. A lot of guys look up to him on the team. He's a leader on that team. He's been here for a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him really break out this year.
Yeah, like you said, KJ, him being on my BWL team, I was surprised, A, how good of a defender he was. I knew he was good. I didn't realize he was this good. And B, I've been surprised by how good of a leader he is. He really does bring a lot of those leadership qualities. And when you have a guy who's a great leader, great defender, that's a great recipe for a guy to really step into one of the top players on the team, and I think there's definitely space for him to do that. Bernie, give me your breakout at the third base position.
I'll go to 14U, and I'll take Ben Combs for my breakout. Another guy that I see him at the bottom all the time. He's in free swing, he's in pitching, he's in fast infield circuit, whatever it may be. Benny's always in it, and I think he's worked really hard this season. I think he continues his tear he had from last fall. And by the end of this season, we were talking about him in the top 10 conversation.
Yeah, and Ben, he's obviously on my BWL team, and there may not be a player who my own personal stock for them, how I see them as a player. There's probably not a single player whose stock has risen higher than Ben Combs over watching him in BWL. It's one thing to look at their game changer stats every weekend. I'll catch a 14U Floyd game every now and again, every couple weekends when I'm free. But to just watch this guy go to work every single game and every single at bat and every single inning, to watch the amount of work this guy puts in and how he takes every single at bat so competitive. He does not give away a single at bat. And I gained a lot of respect for Ben over the course of the BWL so far, and I think he has the potential to be a superstar, future MVP caliber player at the Bears organization. So I would say he's probably in between that star and starter tier right now. I could definitely see him breaking into that superstar category by the end of the year. And, when we're looking at this 14U Floyd lineup, Willeret, Landon Nixon, Jack Dalton, Benny Combs, that is such an unbelievable top four that I think it could be very, very exciting to see what that team will do. But Ben Combs, definitely a great breakout choice. For me, I'm going to go with another 14U guy. He's definitely a guy on the lower end of the tier breakout list. I would see this guy breaking more from a role player to maybe a starter, and that's going to be Wes Brody. This is a guy that we like a lot on the Bears Baseball Network. We talked about him a lot when he joined. A great glove. Guy who I think his bat is really developing, and I think he's going to produce a lot more in that department going into this season. But also a guy who's playing with a lot more confidence. You look at him in practice, and this guy has really been one of the top dogs in practice, whether he's in that top group competing with the top guys or he's the shining star of the bottom group. He's been an absolute beast in practice, and those are things that translate into games. I think he's playing with a lot more confidence, and I could see that confidence, whether he's on that 14U Floyd squad to start or that 14U Driscoll squad, I could see him just rising to the top immediately. I think he's going to be a guy who comes out in a hot start. I would say he's probably one of the best rookies in April, it would be my prediction on Wes Brody. That's going to do it for the third base preview. A lot of stars at this position. Going to be a very exciting position this year. A lot of MVP candidates. Next week, we're talking about the shortstop preview, which may be the only infield position that is stronger than third base. So that's going to be very, very exciting. But that's going to do it for the Bears Baseball Network, and we'll talk to you all.